Mark Strickson, finally, a very warm welcome to Leicester.
Thank you. We are recording. We obviously must be.
I'd like to talk about your background and your life as well as Doctor Who as well.
I'd like to play with the Dine.
Had I? You can play with that if you want, by all means.
Yeah, that's good.
I can tell. When they get annoying,
more of that.
when they get an annoying question, that's what they use.
We should have put him behind Mark, shouldn't we? So he could.
What was that question again? Would it be fair to say you had quite a strict upbringing as a child? Because you were brought up in the
It's a
countryside.
Freudian analysis we're starting
No,
now.
I'm curious because
No, I did have a very strict upbringing, yeah.
your parents were quite religious. Your father was a church organist. Your mother also was involved with the church.
Yeah.
You didn't have a TV till
No.
you were about 9 or 10, which people think is probably a bit odd here. But
Probably
in the
probably a bit
60s,
older than that.
in the 60s, half the population didn't have a TV, so it isn't such a strange thing. No.
Not really. I mean, in the village that I was brought up in, there were two of my friends had televisions. None of the rest of us did at the school. I mean, we went to launched the QE2, the space landing and Winston Churchill's funeral at the village hall on the sort of like village television. That's how old I am.
Well, I'm about the same age as you, but I mean,
But it was a communal thing. That was what television was. It was.
there's some wine there.
Yes.
Oh, good.
1 minute past.
Like
On camera.
1 minute past
Mark
12.
Strickson drinking
1
wine.
minute past 12. Mark Strickson on camera drinking. Probably never been captured before. Unique footage.
But the reason I'm interested in a lot of actors come from quite a strict background, or a lot of actors come from a background where one of the parents is quite religious.
Really?
Yes,
Oh.
having talked to many actors, I've found that
Do
out.
you not think that's I'll start the interview now. Do you not think that's because in general 20, 30 years ago people were much more religious? I mean
Probably.
yes.
You know. Yes, I agree with what you're saying.
I mean my parents still happen to be religious, but I think 20, 30 years ago it was the norm to go to church. It wasn't.
Yes.
It wasn't. So I think say you come from a religious. I mean I come from a highly religious background,
Yeah.
which is the difference. I think. My dad, at the age of 15, was assistant organist at Peterborough Cathedral. And, has a deep religious faith. As did my mother. My brother was an elder in the Quaker Church. He's an elder of the Quaker Church, and I don't have any religious faith whatsoever. So you go one of the two ways probably.
The point I'm trying to make is that was there a seed of that germinated at that time that wanted you to become an actor?
Yeah, because I was a chorister. I was a choir boy. And I used to love the theatre of it, and I mean it's wonderful. In any big church, the vestments, the music, the massive organ, the candles at Christmas, the flowers. I mean it's total theatre, and that's why churches were designed as they are. They are supposed to be theatre, and that can be the theatre of Canterbury Cathedral, or it can be a gospel hall. It's still theatre. It's just doing a different thing. And I loved it, and I loved being at the front and singing solos and all that sort of thing. And I loved the performance element of it. Yeah,
It's funny
absolutely.
you should say that. I've always thought that a church is a very theatrical setting. You have an audience. You have the vicar or priest giving out the sermon, and he is acting the
Totally.
role of a clergyman in a way.
Oh yeah, totally. He's a performer. Yeah. I mean, you hope they also believe in God, presumably. But, essentially, they're performers, which is why you get this problem in America, where it's religion based on television. And I remember at a Doctor Who convention, when we first started going to the US, you'd wake up and you'd turn the telly on, and you'd be in Chicago, and on a Sunday morning, I'd never seen it before. The religious programming would start, and there were these guys doing these amazing performances, and at the end of half an hour, it would be, and send your money to Billy what's his name, or Joe whatever. And as we know, regularly these guys are shown to be a small percentage of them, but regularly a small percentage of them are seen to be total frauds. They're into the money. They're performers who know there's a huge market there to be exploited.
Well, America's a very commercialised society, anyway, isn't it? Like I suppose Australia is, and you've been there.
But the church is a bit like that. I mean, my godfather was organist at Ely Cathedral. It's a business in my family, in a sense. And you can spot a young curate that will be a bishop. They're good performers. And you need a good performer. It's no good just having religious faith. You've got to be able to stand up in public, talk confidently, talk with charisma, and that's how you get on in the church. That's a strange start to a Doctor Who convention.
No, I talked to a lot of actors over the years, and I find that it's interesting they have similar kind of backgrounds.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me at all. The interesting thing was that about the age of 9, and I hope this doesn't offend anybody who has a religious faith, that I would be singing this wonderful music, and I still go to church to listen to the music, because I think it's so fantastic, and I think churches are such beautiful buildings, and I think that there is so little in this life that is pure and beautiful, and it is a celebration of that, and therefore I find it very attractive. But I remember at the age of 9 thinking, what a complete load of bollocks this is, or nonsense. I've never had any religious faith, and there's nothing I can do about that. I've never ever believed there was a God. I mean, God to me is like Father Christmas.
But having that kind of upbringing, you as well as the religious aspects of it as well, you've had strong moral rights and wrongs.
Absolutely, which I still have.
Which goes hand in hand with it, and that in itself is not a bad thing, even if you don't take.
I think it's an absolutely wonderful thing. I mean, all our laws are based. I mean, most religious faiths have the same laws. So I would argue, being a complete cynic, that religion is there to keep control of societies. You have to have laws, but you have to give people a reason to believe in them. And so, if you clever human beings invented this thing, I mean, eons and eons and eons ago, all tribal societies have gods. They're there to produce order in society. Because unfortunately, most humans need a reward for doing something good. And if the reward is you go to heaven rather than you go to hell, then I don't need a reward. I mean, I just think you die. If I can live by the same morals, it's quite interesting. You see, I have this Jehovah's Witness who I talk to a lot, who lives in our village. She's really sweet. She works in the post office. And I shan't bore you with religion, but she says, why do you get up in the morning? And I say, I get up in the morning for exactly the same reasons you do. You get up in the morning because you believe in God and believe there's something to do. One of your missions is to come and talk to people like me. That's great. I get up in the morning because I don't believe there's a God, because I think we have to look after this world for ourselves. It's all we've got. There's nobody going to help us. There's no reward when you die. You're just dead. So if you don't do it in your lifetime, and if you don't help this world and help preserve it, don't bother getting up. So I get up for the same reason as you. I've got a mission.
Two sides of the same coin, but still one coin if you like.
Exactly the same coin. I just have a different way of coming at it.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
I was just interested about that aspect of your life. You started off acting, and you seem to recall you were in very small parts and things like.
I started off acting by being in the National Youth Theatre. I was in the National Youth Theatre when I was 15. You know, Tim Spall. Tim Spall was in it with me. Kate Buffrey, Clive Mantle, who's a doctor in Casualty. Who else in the Youth Theatre with me? Phil Daniels. Don't have anything else who you'd know. Yeah, we all went together. Killian McKenna, T.P. McKenna's son, who was at RADA with me. It's quite a lot of us at that time.
Well, but after you trained as an actor.
Then I went to RADA. Yeah.
Honestly, how do you find drama school as such?
I found it wonderful. I had to drop out because I was so ill at one point. It was quite interesting. I think that drama schools are very different. I went to a very good drama school, and drama schools changed, but at the time I went to RADA it was wonderful. And it gave you a lot of freedom to fail and discover yourself. And that was great, because if you don't feel that security, you won't understand how to be an actor. Now, going to drama school is a bit like passing a driving test. You learn to drive once you pass your test.
Interesting.
All drama school is, it's a bit of a training that helps you get out on the road there. You know how to use the gears, you know where the clutch is, but my goodness, you're going to have to start learning fast, unless you're going to get in a major accident. And it's like, you know, every time you pass it, people always have accidents for the first 2 years after they pass the driving test, don't they? They're always pranging the car. And acting is a bit like that.
Interesting.
You do your training, then you start pranging it, and you hope you don't prang it too publicly after that point. That was my experience of drama school. Funnily enough, I got extremely ill in my 4th term at drama school, and I thought I was having a nervous breakdown. And I only found out about 4 years ago what I had. All my gums went white. I couldn't eat. I felt desperately ill. My doctor put me on aspirin. Gardening with aspirin, and I'd lost a huge amount of weight. I was about 1.5 stone. And I just thought I was having a nervous breakdown of some sort. And this went on for about 3.5 weeks. And I got so ill, I lived in this appalling bed sit in Muswell Hill. I had hardly any money. I thought, I've got to go home, I'm going to die. And I went into college and I said, I'm too ill. just to keep working, and they were very worried. So I went home, and I lost almost a whole term, the whole of my 4th term, which was a lot to lose. And I was expecting to be put back a year, but they didn't put me back a year. I don't know what it was. And lots of people suffer from it now. It was the first infection of the cold sore virus, herpes simplex. I mean, now I think over 40% of the population have herpes simplex. Whenever anybody gets a cold sore, it was quite rare at the time, and it lives in the base of your spine. It can come out any time. But it was so rare. I mean, now again, I think it's 40% of people who go in to a doctor's have some sort of problem with it. And there are all sorts of scientific reasons. It has to do with us being a glaciated country and all those sorts.
These modern living, do you think, causes it? Or?
It's caused by stress. It's caused by not having enough zinc in your diet, which is to do with the diet in this country, because we were glaciated. There isn't much zinc in the soil. For some reason, it's very common now, but it wasn't then. And to this day, it was put down as a nervous breakdown. It wasn't at all. It was just doctors didn't know what it was. So I went back and I finished RADA, and after that you should join the RSC, shouldn't you? I should go to the National or something like that. But I'd had an up and down time at RADA. I'd enjoyed it, but it was a bit rough. I'd been very poor for a lot of it. And I was offered this job with this company who work on a narrowboat, and the money was bloody good. It was like £105 a week, which was quite a lot of money 20 years ago. Equivalent to sort of 400 now. It was certainly a well-paid acting job. I had to write the music, co-write the scripts, and I got to travel all around the waterways of the country for 8.5 months a year. So you had your accommodation provided as well for nothing.
That's quite nice, actually.
And it was like joining the armed forces in a way. It was absolutely fantastic, and I did it for 2.5 years. I put on 2.5 stone in weight, and I came out a very happy, healthy young man, which in a sense is what you should do. And then I met my first wife Julie doing it. So it was.
You lived on a boat for a while, didn't you?
I lived on boats a lot.
When you were making Doctor Who, you
Yeah, I lived on a boat on the Grand Union.
Yeah. So there's obviously the love of the boating came maybe from that.
Well, my granddad was a sailor. I love boats. I adore them. And the project I've just developed is about putting a 140-foot ocean-going boat travelling the seas for 6 years. I have a complete love affair with boats. I buy Waterways World every month, ships monthly.
You were down in Portsmouth the other day.
I know. I'm a really sad old boat kid.
Well, it's your interest. Why not?
And I feel happy. I mean, I get on a Channel ferry and I just love it. It makes me feel happy the moment I get on a boat. It just does something to me.
Do you like books about the sea as well? Do you like Moby Dick?
Oh, all that. Yeah, no, I do all that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Getting back to you, you're in a few bit parts in things like Strangers and Angels and Juliet Bravo.
Well, Angels, I was a regular in. I did quite a few.
I'm trying to remember back that far.
I played Terry, an ambulanceman. I did almost a year on Angels. Because what happened was, I was actually offered the lead in Angels.
I was going to say, because this was the time you were offered the job of
Doctor Who. Yeah. No, what happened was, Al Ashton, who's playing the lead in Angels, who was the ambulance, who worked in the ambulance with me, we were two ambulance men. He became ill. I can't remember what he was ill with now, but he couldn't work. And they had to rapidly rewrite somebody in, and I was offered the lead in Angels. Because I've been a regular character, it was easy to work the plot that way, and and I had a girlfriend, and there was no, in the plot. I mean, and it was, it was easy to get rid of Al with a car accident or something, and just write me in. And Julia Smith, who went on to do EastEnders, wrote me in without telling me as the lead on Angels, and I didn't like that because I didn't mind playing Terry. It was all right.
But did you have a dilemma over whether to do that or to do the...
Well, no, how it happened was, I rang my agent and I said, am I being offered any other work? And she said, well, the only other thing you're up for at the moment is a regular part in Doctor Who, but I don't think they're auditioning for that for about 6 weeks. And so the BBC being quite a small place, I went and knocked on John Nathan Turner's door. And I said, you don't know me, I'm Mark Strickson. I'm a regular. He said, I do know you, you're regular in Angels. And he said, we're seeing you for Turlough. And I said, well, that's the point. I've been offered the lead in Angels, and I'd rather do the Doctor Who job. So he said, well, sit down. And then Eric saved him from the other office.
This is Shepherd's Bush, wasn't it?
Yeah, at Threshold House in Shepherd's Bush. Got in the other office, Eric came in from the other office, I read, and he said, I'll be in touch with your agent. And 2 days later, they offered me the job, and they hadn't even started auditioning.
Not bad, eh?
So I was able to turn the job down in Angels. I was also that same week offered a part in Juliet Bravo. But on the same day I was offered 3 parts basically, the leads in Angels, one of the leads in Doctor Who, and a part in Juliet Bravo. It's never happened to me again in my life, and never will. There was because of that I did some Juliet Bravo. There was one week where I was on 5 times. I was on every night. So they all just got scheduled the same week, which was I thought all my Christmases would come at once.
The first story you appeared in, Waterman and Dead, was a very strong story. It's very well written. Got to work with Nick Courtney as well.
Yeah.
In fact, those first 3 episodes, that sort of Black Garden trilogy, was very, very well written in terms of political character. Is it Peter Grimwade read it?
That's right.
That's right. Yeah. Did you like that? I mean, you read the script of the first story. What did you think? Or did you read the first 3 or 4 scripts?
Well, no. It didn't happen like that. I finished on Angels. I then went into Juliet Bravo. Did a Juliet Bravo. I then had 11 days off before I started in Doctor Who, and I hadn't had a holiday in ages. And Julie and I went on a cycling holiday in Brittany for 10 days, and I thought, I'm not taking any work with me. And I read the script for the first Doctor Who the night before I did the shoot.
It's true. Just the day before.
And learnt the lines. Literally the night before. Which I thought, it's fine. You tend to shoot television in quite short scenes anyway. It's not hard to learn.
So there wasn't any big long speeches to learn.
No, it was easy. I mean, the first day was in the car. There were very short speeches, so it was totally professional what I was doing. It wasn't a problem. And before that, I'd had a lot of conversations about the character, and we'd gone out and bought the costume. So I knew the character. So it was better to actually have a break and go on holiday and prepare myself in that way. But then you get scripts. You don't get to see scripts 3 or 4 ahead. You get the script the day your rehearsals start. In fact, you get the script. How Doctor Who was shot was you get 3 days filming or 4 days filming, then you start rehearsal. We didn't get any rehearsal before we went filming. So you just learnt your lines.
So location filming is done without any
rehearsal whatsoever.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, you just go, you turn up and you do it. And you're supposed to have learnt your lines and get on with it. But that's the norm. In general, location filming is done without any rehearsal.
And that tends to be done.
Is that a surprise?
Work. It does a bit because I think.
On a film, there's hardly any rehearsal for a film. You tend to do it scene by scene. Even a big Hollywood movie, you don't tend to get any rehearsal unless you want it. But directors don't tend to rehearse actors. They just do it scene by scene.
But the studio work is done after the filming, generally speaking.
Yeah, and then so you do your filming. You go in for 7 or 8 days rehearsal into a 3-day studio, 2-day studio. 7 or 8 days rehearsal into 2 or 3 day studio, weekend off, back into the next one. But then you see the script for the first time at the read through. That's when you either see it at the read through, or you see it's sent you in the post because there's filming before studio.
The second story in that trilogy, you're not too keen on Terminus, are you? I understand.
I just thought it was visually drab.
It wasn't. You were just all damn dark tunnels and.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I wore out the knees on one of the suits they gave me because they never think of actors when they design sets, do they? So they were like, metal grills that we had to crawl along, and it was really uncomfortable. And you'd spend a day crawling on these metal grills, admittedly, with your head up from Janet Kearney's bottom. It was
a small consolation.
I seem to remember in the vagueness of the past, but it was thoroughly uncomfortable, thoroughly miserable. And having done Mawdrey and Undead, having had such a strong part, that was Sarah's story where she left, so she had a very strong part. And the rest of us got, suddenly you're sidelined. And I'm not used to this as an actor. I mean, you get used to it in a series, you get used to having your turn, but I just wasn't used to this.
Well, it ended, that Black Guardian trilogy ended on quite a high note because Enlightenment was quite a strong story.
Yeah, it was. That was great.
Andy Bellingham and Keith Barron as well.
Oh, super people to work with as well.
Is it true? Well, was Keith Barron cast at the last minute? Wasn't Peter Sellers supposed to do that role?
I don't know. If so, I've never heard it.
Oh, I believe he was cast originally.
Yeah.
But that was quite a strong, well-written story, I thought.
It was.
Unusual one as well.
No, I thought it was great, and I thought again. You see, if you look at Terminus and you look at that was visually interesting. And there's a lot of colour in it, a
Lots
you know,
of twists and turns.
lots of twists and turns. Yeah, I mean, Terminus was just sort of like
Too straight.
rather worthy. It really was rather worthy. You know, it's think about this leper colony in space. You know, and it's just like, oh dear.
Would it be fair to say that your character got a little bit sidelined? The reason I say that, I don't mean the criticism of your performance. I'm thinking of the script writers here, because the King's Demons, you're stuck in a dungeon for most of the story. The Five Doctors, you're stuck in the TARDIS for most of the story. I mean, as an actor, I realised they had problems with that with various.
Well, I think it's a compliment because we'd done 2 or 3 stories, and John Nathan Turner sat Janet and I and Pete round a table and said, "We got a problem here. We've got 3 doctors, and we can't have that. This is called Doctor Who, and there is only 1 star in this programme." So you know there was a problem there. You always try and, in the best way possible as an actor, you try and look. Of course you do. You try and look good, right? So you know if you're looking at the TARDIS screen and you say, "What's that, Doctor?" Well, that doesn't make you look good. It doesn't make you look intelligent. It doesn't make you look interesting. But if you say, "What's that, Doctor?" In other words, I have an idea what it is. Then that works, and you look intelligent, you're interesting, and the audience is drawn towards you, and you've got power. But unfortunately, that takes it all away from the Doctor, and that doesn't work because the script hasn't written that. You, as an actor, have written that. So you start writing your character by delivering lines with a certain intonation. So you make your character very powerful. So you know, even when you're not talking, right, you're looking at the screen on the TARDIS. And you're doing a calculation. Now, there's nothing like that in the script. You're doing it as an actor. You are creating a force for yourself.
Scene stealing.
And but it isn't scene stealing. It's developing your character. You can either sit there as a piece of cardboard, or you can have a brain. But unfortunately, Doctor Who doesn't work if anybody but from the Doctor has a brain, because the script is led by the Doctor.
Yeah, the companions are there to ask questions.
That's all they're there for. And if you don't like that, shut up and get out. Which is in essence what I did at the end of it. I got used to it.
You were contracted for
I settled
18
down.
months, weren't you?
Yeah, I settled down. But I did more than 18 months. I did 23 months on the programme. Because we had breaks.
Of course, yes.
Which I did at Housley. I went to the builder in my break.
Another strong story I thought was Frontiers, because your character, we learn more about Turlough as a person. We learned that the Tractators had invaded his planet as well. And I like the idea of that, the TARDIS. I love the stories where the TARDIS gets blown up, you know.
Well, Frontiers, yeah, it was very clever.
It was a very strong story, and he's a bug-type creature, strange kind of creature as well.
Yeah. Is it true that Patrick Troughton's wife had a TARDIS in their house? She got the BBC set. I've heard this, right? This is
it's news to me.
Question, right? Question. I
Oh,
thought that Pat. Oh no, not Pat Troughton. William Hartnell's wife. William Hartnell's wife. They actually had the first TARDIS set in their house.
This is Helen, is it?
Yeah, and you know the inside of the TARDIS, and they had it as a room in the house. Is that true?
I don't know. I've never heard that before. It sounds quite good though. I wouldn't mind going with.
That was something that was told me.
Put the cup of tea on top of the console.
20 years ago, the Chicago conventions. I think it was somebody like Pat who told me.
I didn't know
or
that.
Tom or
I
something.
never heard that one. I've never heard
Yeah,
that.
but then he took the set and he had it rebuilt in his own home.
I hope it's true. It sounds
It ought to be.
It should be, shouldn't it? Yeah.
It would have been a copy because the BBC would have let them.
I've still got a pair of my shorts, which I suppose I could put on and romp around in if I wanted to be reminded of Doctor Who, but I don't think I could get in them. It's the waistline more than anything else.
The final story was also written by the person who wrote the first one.
Yeah, well, it had to be. I think it had to be because I didn't give them much notice I was quitting. So you needed somebody who knew the character, knew the plot, and I thought he did a fantastic job.
I mean, was that done by mutual consent then that you left?
No,
the role, or did you say, look, I'm
terminated my
leaving.
contract.
This is my notice.
The BBC, I think as far as I remember, how Doctor Who contracts used to work was there was a minimum time. And once you got past your minimum time, which in my case was 18 months, the BBC had the first option. Then you had an option after 6 months. Then the next option that came up was their option. Then the next option that came up was your option. It did it on 6 months, and I terminated the contract when my option came up.
So did Peter Grimwade have to sort of come up with this storyline very, very quickly?
Within about a couple of months, yes.
because it tied up all the loose ends quite neatly.
Oh, it's
I
very
thought.
clever.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I thought
it was
fantastic
like
job.
it had this plan, this
Yeah.
great story arc planned from the very beginning. But
He probably had about 6 weeks to write it.
And writing a new companion at the same time.
And
Yes,
writing
you
a new companion at the
I
same
mean,
time,
you
which
got
is
to
not
work
easy.
with.
No, it's not easy job
No.
at all to do.
There's Peter Wingard was in that
Yeah.
story. Anne Tainley, you had Nicola Bryant, and it was Lanzarote.
What is... Oh, Chris,
Location.
hold on,
I
quiz
mean-
question, right. What is Peter Wingard's real name?
It's not Jason King, is it?
It's not Jason King. I don't know the answer to this, but it was a question. Do you know?
Peter Wingard. I don't know.
Right, no. Apparently, he comes from somewhere like Russia or Czechoslovakia. His family, and he's called like Slobodan Voskowski or something, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he changed his name to Peter Wingard. And I knew this because I was listening to BRMB yesterday, and there was a phone-in quiz, and that was one of the questions.
I didn't know that. Yeah, it's interesting.
God, you see the things you learn listening to BRMB.
Yeah. You're on location in Lanzarote. I mean, you usually ended up in Gerrards Cross, Buckinghamshire or something, but this is location.
Well, we ended up in Lanzarote because the director, Fiona Cumming, had a holiday home there. She lived 2 doors down from John Nathan Turner and Gary Downey in the flats in Brighton. She directed with John before. She'd just finished doing Take the High Road for Scottish Television, and perhaps she's certainly been working on that. And John was talking about places they'd go filming. So I think John wangled himself a recce at some point, courtesy of the BBC, to go and stay in Fiona's house in Lanzarote. Having done that, you've got to film a story there. So it's I think
It's a nice story.
It's absolutely true. To give Johnny his due, I think if you think about Lanzarote and you think about the volcanic landscape and all those things, it is ideal for filming.
Yes, it
documentaries.
is. Yes, it is.
But having said that, there was that, and also the fact that John wanted to get me in shorts, and the only way he could get me in shorts was by getting me filming somewhere warm, where I couldn't have any excuse not to wear shorts.
Did you ever feel that there was?
So why wasn't Peter in shorts? Good question.
Well, yeah, I mean, who knows? Did you ever
I've
feel-
got better legs, that's me.
I haven't seen Peter Davison's
Shut
legs.
up,
so
who's doing the interview?
I can't really answer.
I have seen Peter's legs.
Did you ever feel that the TARDIS crew was a bit overcrowded at some stage? I mean,
Well, it's overcrowded if you have any more than the Doctor and the female
I was
assistant.
thinking of the character of Chameleon, who was an interesting
Oh, yeah,
character,
yeah.
but he was just one too many, wasn't he? Really?
No, a comedian would have been great actually if they'd had
He'd
more than
work.
£2,000 to make a robot, but he didn't work, so it was a complete impossibility to work with comedian. I mean, you get there and the bits of his body would be missing, and I mean, it was an absolute nightmare. And I mean, I've said this to people before, but it is unbelievable if you think of technology now. On the other hand, I was sitting in a friend's toilet the other day, and they had these old copies of Punch, and it was 1986 copy of Punch, and it was about a new PC that had come out that might take computers forward, that people could actually afford to have them in their own homes. And he reviewed this. At the end of the review it said, but don't actually really bother with it because it doesn't really work. Go out and buy yourself a Mac. There's only one computer in the world. Oh, this is absolutely fascinating. So if you think when they were making Chameleon, I mean, they did really well, but quite simply the technology wasn't there. Or if it was hugely expensive. I mean, just have a look at the first Star Wars film and see how primitive it looks now. Is it CP3O, the little, that I mean, it can't actually R2D2, anyway, but it can't go anywhere. You have a look, right? You see it there, and suddenly it's somewhere else.
It swivels its head a bit.
Yeah, it swivels its head a bit, does a few peeps, but I mean, that's about it. It's as good as it's getting. And Chameleon was the same problem. It couldn't work. And to this day, I don't know how this happened. That the special effects guys had to make a tape where they recorded Chameleon's his or hers lines, and that's impossible to work with. There's actually you have a set amount of time to put a speech into. No either your line would be too long or too short. It just didn't work. So what can you do? Talk fast or talk very, 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 very slowly. And you do it. Why was that Chameleon? Actually, you really want to say, why was that Chameleon? And so you get, and that's a funny thing about Doctor Who, because it is about fitting to film. The scenes are written to last a certain amount of time, and the scenes are written quite long at the beginning. They have to start lasting less time at the end. Then suddenly you get a long scene, which is the Doctor's tie-up scene at the end. And then you get a few short scenes and it's goodbye. And your acting has to go with that. There are times when you slow down, and times you have to talk fast. And so it's a completely different job to any other acting job, where you can respond and not have those time constraints. And you don't have you don't work in drama, right? And a production manager say to you normally, come on, let's up the energy, end of episode, near the end of episode, bags of energy, because you just respond to the energy you're getting off the other actor. No, this isn't like that at all. This is a strict cartoon. And you have to be doing this artificial energy. We're coming up to end of episode. Punch the line, Pete! Punch the line, Pete! It's end of episode! That's got nothing to do with acting at all. It's a skill that an actor can do. But it has nothing to do with acting.
Interesting.
It's got to do with manufacturing energy. And that's, and television in many ways. Doctor Who is a bit like presenting. I do quite a lot of presenting these days. When you see presenters on television, if you meet them in the flesh, many of them are totally over the top. They have this huge energy, and it works terribly well on television. I did a voiceover the other day, and the chap said to me, you're way overacting, Mark. And it's just a voiceover. And I said, no, I'm not. I said, you don't know anything about it. You wait till the playback. You go to the playback, and it just sounds totally normal, because you can't see the person. And in a voiceover, you have to put in a huge amount of energy.
The camera probably diminishes a little bit as well. So.
But I'm saying in a voiceover, you don't even see the face. It's just a voiceover over a picture. So you need bags of energy to force something along sometimes. And what would be huge overacting in an acting situation is just about getting there in a voiceover situation. This is why we're paid money as actors. We know these things.
When you left Doctor Who, you had a period where you weren't actually doing much at all, really, didn't you?
No, that's not true. That's a complete myth.
Is it?
Yeah, absolute myth. I worked as a very good jobbing actor, earning quite a lot of money until I left for Australia. I worked until 2 days until I left for Australia. I went from Doctor Who into skin of our teeth at Leeds Playhouse for 2.5 months. No, it's complete rubbish.
Oh,
I earned a very good living as an actor for the next
year.
I earned a very good living as an actor.
I've been misquoting, I'm sorry.
No, you have your ups and downs. If as an actor you work 7 months a year, that's fine because you can earn a living. And I never worked less than 7 months a year for the next 8 years.
You came to a watershed in your life when you obviously decided to go to Australia and study zoology. You have a degree in zoology.
Yeah.
That must have been a very, casting your mind back to that time, a very difficult decision to make. Or was it?
No, it wasn't. It was a very easy decision to make and a very difficult decision to live with.
You're changing your job, you're going to a different country.
Well, I haven't really changed my job. That isn't how it happened. Julie, my wife, had been in Emmerdale Farm. We both sort of trolled on as actors, doing bits and bobs, but fine earning a living. We weren't poor. We moved house 3 times in a very nice house in the country park in Hastings. My sort of dream house overlooked the sea. There was only 3 houses in the country park. We had one and it was lovely. Beautiful walks with the dog, fairly easy access to London. But I was 29, she was 28. And it's quite soon in your life to get to that point. We've both worked a lot and been very lucky and earned quite a lot of money. But in terms of what actors get paid now, we'd earned a fortune. An absolute fortune. So we were very, very fortunate. We had a very good run for our money, and we could make choices, and that's a wonderful position to be in. And I will always thank acting for giving me enough money to make choices when I was 29, what I wanted to do in my life. Incredible situation to be in. And we decided that life was too short to just do what we were doing, be actors and live there, and that's it, life's over. So we decided to do something completely mad, which was sell everything we had and go to Australia. Neither of us had ever lived there. Neither of us had visited there. And we applied for emigration. We got full emigration status because we both been successful actors and we could teach acting and all those sorts of things. And they wanted people with those skills. So we got in under a thing called free and independent skilled migration. There are various problems with this. One, you had to have a certain amount of capital, which we had. You couldn't claim social security or anything like that or any health benefits for I think 2 years. But we were both healthy and we didn't see this as any problem, and that was fine. So we went out there. I will never forget flying into Australia. We went via Greece. We had 2 weeks in Greece. We then flew to Beijing. We went by train and bicycle from Beijing down to see some friends in Hong Kong, an old school friend of mine. And then we flew via Bali, where we had 4 days. And Bali is like Ibiza for Australians. And that was my first experience of Australians en masse. And both Julian and I thought, we've made a terrible mistake. This is going to be terrible. It's like going to Ibiza before you come to England, right? Everybody's pissed. Everybody's you love Australia, you fucking love it. It's like, oh my god. And then we touched down in Sydney, and we got off the plane. My parents had some friends who we went and stayed with. I'll tell you this, but don't tell anybody else. The first day there, we had most of our valuables stolen by their son, who was heavily into drugs. And that was absolutely awful.
I can imagine. Yeah.
That was fine, we claimed them on the insurance, but it was things of very great sentimental value, including the ring Judy had been given by her father and things like this.
Oh,
It was really nasty. We knew he'd stolen them. He did. He didn't come out. He didn't come back home. But you can't. The police came round. You can't say, for goodness' sake, it was your son who did this. And anyway, it was a whole nightmare. We moved out. That's 24 hours into Australia. We moved out into a hotel. We bought a car the next day, and we bought a house the next day. We bought a house about 30 kilometres north of Sydney, overlooking the water. And for the next 9 months, we acted, both of us. And decided what we wanted to do with our lives. And I got offered a job teaching drama, lecturing in drama at the university. And I think it was that sort of stimulated us into both doing zoology degrees. In fact, Julie ended up with a degree in anthropology and zoology, and I ended up with a pure biochemical zoology degree.
I was wondering if your background, growing up in the countryside, having affinity with animals.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, no, absolutely.
So that was always there, the interest in animals.
Yeah, I mean, I should basically have married a farmer's daughter, because I'd have been much happier as a farmer than anything else. I mean, to this day, I think I would have been happier in my head as a farmer. It's a bad time to say it in England at the moment.
Yeah,
I would have been. I love the open air. I love physically using my body. I have a body that was designed to dig fields. I don't know if you've seen the stuff in the papers this week about Neanderthal men and red-haired people and Neanderthals, or ginger-haired people, and it's all about Chris Evans, most of it. But there is an element of truth in it. That the Neanderthals had quite short limbs, but were very, very strong in their upper body. Very, very, very tough creatures. Ginger hair was very common. Neanderthals basically had ginger hair. But they also had other traits. They were highly aggressive. And there are all sorts of traits that go with being ginger-haired. The Egyptians used to kill ginger-haired children on birth, and this is quite true in many societies. Ginger-haired people are trouble. They do tend to be very aggressive.
Interesting.
They tend to be, in many societies, very high achievers. There are all sorts of confounding factors here. It's very interesting what's been in the papers this week, because it's like a 10-year research project that's come out. One of the reasons is people remember ginger-haired people, so they tend to be very successful because people remember them. You're instantly memorable because it's quite a rare gene in Western society. I mean, most people have dark hair. 80% of people have dark hair, let alone having red hair. So you're instantly instantly memorable. And there are all sorts of bad things that go with having ginger hair. Anyway.
That's interesting.
I'm not about to totally annihilate my personality.
I didn't know this. You're telling me something I was not aware of.
I've forgotten what I was talking about then. But
well, you're talking about Australia being in basically your love of animals and wanting to get.
Absolutely. I mean, I was surrounded by animals when I was a child. And absolutely. I have a huge affinity for the country. I find it very difficult to live in a city. I've always lived in small villages.
I'm curious about something here, as Jerry would say to me. Do you consider yourself an actor, a producer, a bit of each now?
An actor.
You're still an actor?
Yeah, I wake up in the morning and I'm an actor. And I have to pinch myself to think I'm a television producer, really. And I still think I'm acting, and I'm getting away with a good impression of being a television producer.
You see, you've done something that very few people do, work both sides of the camera. I'm thinking of people like, very few people in your profession have done this. So Barry Lettshouse, he's been a producer, actor, director.
Yeah.
Patrick McNee's done producing and acting. It's not something that, you often get people that direct and act, but not produce and act.
I agree.
It's a very unusual thing. Does it give you a different perspective of acting itself, the problems of it, or do you appreciate the problems of a production much more so being involved in it from every aspect, I should think? I mean, when you were an actor, did you look at production as not easy, because you obviously see
I didn't. No.
It's technically very, very complex, but do you look at it differently now, the whole thing, when you just acted without understanding the technical aspects of it, or problems?
I understand the politics of being a producer much more, and there's a huge amount of internal politics. And I've been in a company that was part of HTV, was then taken over by United and is now part of Granada in 4 or 5 years. There have been huge staff problems. We've cut the workforce by 70%. I've been in panels which have to just say who loses their jobs, things like that. That part of it doesn't half make you grow up fast. And that's the problem I have. I was an actor from, I think, 15 when I joined the National Youth Theatre, until I was 36 when I came back to the UK. And very, very quickly I became quite senior in a very large company. And that wasn't anything that my training had sort of fitted me for. And I had all the skills, I'd done 4 years statistics at university. I was perfectly able of handling multi-million pound budgets, which is what I do. There's a huge... Natural history is quite a strange thing. It's a bit like making a film. We have very, very big budgets. Bigger than anything. Probably bigger than anything, other than movies. So at any one time I might have been managing £3 or £4 million, with quite a lot of staff working under me. And it can all go terribly wrong terribly quickly if you make the wrong decision. And that is something I'm fine and happy and dandy with, but I think it fundamentally affects your personality. And I think you've either got the personality that wants that, or you've got the personality that doesn't want that. And I have found in the 6 years I've been doing it that it's taken away a side of me which I really enjoy, which is a very spontaneous side, a very creative side, why I became an actor. And
thinking about the money now, how much a setup is costing. And
I'm highly analytical now.
Yeah.
And I find myself, which I was yesterday, sitting with a producer saying, no, let me tell you, that won't work. You will be cutting that sequence. My experience tells me you haven't got the money for it. And it isn't something that sits happily on me.
No, but
I know I can do it.
Surely that experience is good, because then you're being paid for that experience.
But what I find it kills the other side of my personality. I don't think you can be both. You can either be a creative, spontaneous person, or you can be that sort of person. And I think there is a character difference between people who decide to be bank managers and people who decide to be actors. There is, definitely. And I'm pretending that my character is the character of a producer. In fact, my character is the character of an actor. I become myself now when I leave work. In fact, you shouldn't be in a job in which you do that.
So someone actually asked you, what is your profession? You'd say actor.
Yeah,
interesting. You returned to the role of Turlough with Peter Davison for the CD, the Big Finish CD, Phantasmagoria. How was that, coming back to doing the same character?
Well, it was a wonderfully happy experience, because I'm a huge fan of The League of Gentlemen, and Mark Gatiss wrote it. And
this is based on that.
Well, no, I mean, I was just completely in awe meeting Mark Gatiss. I mean, it was like, can I touch your sleeve? I was just, oh my God, it's Mark Gatiss off League of Gentlemen. Oh God, he's so wonderful. I mean, you do. I love League of Gentlemen. I think it's very, very clever. And so I had an absolutely wonderful 2 days doing it, because it was great to be with. I love acting, you see. And we're going back to the question you just asked me.
Yes, but
It was wonderful just get in a car and be an actor.
how
Huge
was it
relief,
coming back
too.
to that same character after that break?
Very, very easy.
Really, just felt just like
You just
that.
go into it like that because you've done it for so long in your life. And you don't ever forget the relationship. It's like riding a bike. When I start acting with Peter, we act in the same way. It's like getting on a bike and all the controls are in the same place. I know how Peter acts, he knows how I act. I know his timing, he knows my timing. Exactly the same. It's like takes about 5 minutes. I mean, if you haven't, talking about Ford Capris earlier on, if you haven't driven a Capri for 15 years, that's fine. But if you drove one for 5 years, right, you know how the gearbox works. You know the timing. Yeah, it takes you 5 minutes to just feel the seat again and get back in the Capri.
You've just made another one with him, or you've got one coming up, haven't you?
Yeah, Luke Garou, yes. Yeah, which is great, because it's about werewolves, and I get to be ingested by wolves, vomited by wolves. It's a real, good Turlough acting. You see the script, Turlough is vomited by a wolf. He makes a noise. Okay. Now, when you go to RADA, they don't teach you what noise to make when you're vomited by a wolf. And it's absolutely fascinating, because we had Eleanor Bron in there, Nikki Henson, right? And if you've done... Doctor Who teaches you to be an actor with no shame whatsoever. Because you are in completely unreal situations continuously, and you have to manufacture things. Turlough is zapped by the something and falls to the floor, spitting out green foam. Well, there you go. You do it. And most actors aren't used to this. Most actors are having some sort of emotional build-up before they actually have to do something emotional. But it's quite interesting watching Eleanor Bron, and she had real problems. She's just a wonderful, wonderful actress. But having some problems with having to instantly be vomited from a wolf and make noises. But as a Doctor Who actor, this is part of the course. It's like, Doctor, yeah. It's what we do.
I look forward to listening to it.
It's a daily process on Doctor Who.
At this stage, is there anybody that'd like to ask Mark Strickson a question at all? Anybody got a question for Mr. Strickson? Or not, as the case may be.
Or not.
Then he was doing Planet of Fire.
Yeah.
What's the story about the German nudist with Perry?
Oh yeah, that was well, as you probably know if you've ever been to the Canary Islands, they're full of Germans.
German nudists.
They're full of German nudists. Well, most Germans are nudists, as far as I can work out. I was staying in a hotel in Hamburg a few weeks ago, and sort of went down to the health club, and it's fucking full of completely nude Germans. They just, first opportunity, they rip all their clothes off. So you go to Lanzarote, Canary Islands. I'll do an advert for the Canary Islands for you. Well, my experience of the Canary Islands is nude Germans, a lot of tomatoes, a lot of cheap tobacco, because they can only grow tobacco and tomatoes in the Canary Islands. And there seems to be quite a lot of snakeskin belts as well. But if you don't want any of those things, and the breakfasts are horribly German, you come down and they're just mounds of cold hard-boiled eggs and acres of cold meat, just like laid out, and a bit of black bread. It's completely set up for the Germans. I don't know why anybody else bothers going there. And this particular scene, I mean, Nicola's supposed to be drowning, and she was quite far out at sea, as far as I remember.
She was quite far.
I don't know why I wouldn't have shot it like that as a director. I don't know why she was shooting it like that. Because I had a long way to swim, for starters, to get to her. And the sea is bloody freezing there. I mean, it's absolutely perishing, and we were on a pebble beach. It was like swimming at Hastings or something. And, it was a total nightmare. And there's another beach just round. I mean, pretty how far out at sea she was. There's another beach round the cove. But the people round the cove are nearer to her than I am on the beach we're filming from. And work that one out. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And she starts shouting and shouting, but they don't know there's filming on. And this German nudist runs along the rocks, dives into the water, and tries to save her life. And by the time I get to Nicola, she's got this new German crawling all over her. Tries to do this, do all this. And I'm going, Nicola is in a total state of shock because she hasn't seen the new German coming. Sorry, I'll rephrase that. I mean, you can imagine, she's looking towards me and suddenly she's got this new German on her back and trying to lifesave her, who doesn't know she's acting, an absolute nightmare. Then I arrive and I'm going, filming, we're filming, you know, and my German is limited to 1 to 12. I can say noch ein Bier bitte, which means can I have another beer please, but that's my limit in most languages. but no, so it was an absolute nightmare, and he was really pissed off as well, because as you know, the Germans are famed for their sense of humour. And he was extremely angry. I think he filed a written complaint to the BBC that we hadn't told him that we were filming him, that he damaged his feet running across the rocks. I mean, these days
didn't
we'd
he
be up
spoil the
for
shot
50
afterwards? Didn't he walk across the set after later on, the same journey?
I wasn't surprised. He wasn't a happy camper.
So he walked across the shot and ruined it later on in the
Yeah,
day.
yeah. This is a fascinating thing about making television, right? You go out there. Everybody loves watching television. Well, they don't love it. They watch it, right? But you go out there and you start inconveniencing anybody's life by making television, and they get really pissed off. And you see, as a director, you have these conversations like saying, "Do you watch television?" "Yes." "How do you think it's made?" "Well, I don't know." You see, we have to come out into the world and film it. So occasionally people have to be slightly inconvenienced. We on a daily basis have to ask people just for 5 minutes to stop mowing their lawn. Now, would you do that? "No way, I'll mow my lawn." And you don't get anywhere. And it is totally weird. People will not cooperate with you filming television. I've had a recent example of this. I mean, it's happened in the last few days. I'm trying to remember what it is. To do with having quiet. Yeah, filming in Plymouth Aquarium, right? I mean, you know, we were filming there for 9 hours, and I wanted 5 minutes of quiet. That's all I wanted. And I was really nice about it as a director. I said, excuse me everybody, I'm really, really sorry to bother you, but we actually just need 5 minutes of absolute quiet, because we've been doing some filming here all day, and I need to get what's called an atmos, and I explained what an atmos was, right? But if we could just have 5 minutes of silence, I'd be hugely grateful. 2 old people. "We paid our money to come in here. It's a bloody filming. We're not doing this filming thing. We want to watch this. You can do it when we leave." That was it. And I had the whole conversation again. Do you ever watch television? Do you like watching it? We have to do it in places. You know, it's just part of...
People like being awkward, though, don't they?
They do, but I mean, most of the people were lovely about it. But you always get...
The victim elegies of this world.
Yeah, the victim elegies of this world. Who, you know, I don't know how they think we make television. They think we
if not
get
for
all
the opportunity to actually be on television, they'd humiliate themselves any way possible.
Well, yeah, no, exactly. Yes. 5 minutes of fame.
Any other questions for Mark Strickson?
There was lots of talk of, probably a little bit after your time, about animosity between John Nathan Taylor and Eric Saywood. Do you have any sort of insight?
Well, I'm sure there was a certain amount of, not animosity, there was a problem. I think John was right and Eric was wrong. I have huge respect for Eric's talent. Eric tried to push the series. I think his heart was very much in the right place. I might be totally wrong, but I think it was. And everybody knew that if you wanted to keep Doctor Who alive, you had to do something slightly different with it. You also had to keep the ratings up. Television had never been about ratings before that point. So John and Eric took Doctor Who from a world where ratings were
Not so important.
not so important to a world in which they are absolutely crucial. I live or die today as a producer by my ratings. I mean, you cannot imagine what a relief it is to know that Steve Owen and I had a bank holiday Monday at 6 o'clock, just about got the biggest audience share. That is massively important. It has huge ramifications for me. You know, I'm still a trusted name. It was me who produced it for the UK market. Yes, he still can do it. It's another year's work for me. Whatever, you're as good as your last project. You're as good as the ratings on your last project. And Eric, I think, felt that the way to keep Doctor Who alive was to grow the audience away from the family audience, because we were losing the family audience slot. That 5:30 slot, I mean, we'd lost. We'd gone into the 7 o'clock slot. We'd almost gone into a soap opera slot. Soap operas, you've got to remember at that time, were limited to Coronation Street and Emmerdale. I mean, Angels had been the soap. EastEnders was just starting. So soap opera wasn't a big thing. Doctor Who was, at that time, in a position and had to compete for the 7 o'clock soap opera slot. So what did you do with it? Well, you had to make it appeal to adult audiences more, didn't you? So that the big majority of adults wanted to watch Doctor Who. And Eric thought that the way to do that was to make it pseudo-political, give it more adult interest, give it romance, give it all those things. John felt that was... Well, he'd already had his fingers burnt by Return of the Daleks, where Eric wrote the police officer killing the guy on the beach. John had been dragged into Michael Grade's office and been told, we're cancelling Doctor Who now. Well, why on earth didn't I know that there was going to be a British police officer killing somebody on screen last night? That's the first time it's ever happened. It's happened on the BBC, and I don't care, but you didn't approve that by me as channel controller, and you will not behave like that, John Nathan Turner, again. From now on, you answer to me and you tell me what you're doing. He'd been dragged onto the carpet, and Eric had written that, and so you've got this. You've already got that heat in there. And they're both trying to do the same thing. John's trying to save Doctor Who, Eric's trying to save Doctor Who, but they slightly disagree about how to do it. So I'm sure there was conflict in there, absolutely. But for the best reason of all, that both of them believed in the product, but had...
John Nathan being producer got his knuckles wrapped because he was the
producer
of the show. So.
Oh, no, actually, the buck stops with the producer. I mean, this is it. I mean, last week, I've resigned my job, but I'm still the executive producer on shows. And the buck stops with me. I don't care if you're a staff producer. I don't care if you're a staff production manager. I'm responsible for the budgets. I don't care if I'm only working 8 days on this project that's got my name on the end of it. If it goes wrong, I will be blamed. And as a producer, as an executive producer, you're very, very aware of that. You have to keep control of everything. And therefore, the conflict would have been John saying to Eric, no, Eric, you can only go so far. Sorry, I as executive producer have to say to you that. And nobody ever likes that. I mean, people don't like bosses, do they?
No.
But somebody's got to be the boss. The buck has to stop somewhere.
Is it Michael Winner once said a team works, a lot of people doing what I tell them to do.
I mean, in general, that's right. And that's why there are not that many old people in television. When I sat in a room a year ago, we had 86 employees at the time, and I was the second oldest person in the room. You can't job share television. It's one person's, at the end of the day, it's one person's programme. They've chosen the composer, they've chosen the script writer, they've chosen the way the plot goes. They've chosen the director in the case of a producer. I mean, it really is the producer's programme. In the same way that films are a director's. It's different in film. They're a director's baby. But television is a producer's baby, and the buck stops with you. That's it.
I think we've time for one more question. Is there a question I'd like to ask? I've always wanted to ask Mark Strickson.
I'd like to ask. I remember seeing
how many units of alcohol do you drink per week? How often do you have sex? It's the Guardian. Those awfully embarrassing, questions they have in the back of
how
papers.
How much is a pint of milk?
And everybody answers the same. Not enough. Too many.
No, there's nothing like that. I recall seeing you at Sheffield some time ago, and it was before sort of Steve Irwin hit the screen.
Right.
And you told us all about it, and you showed us that incredible clip of the crocodile where he's just had his hands over its eyes.
Yeah.
I remember you saying, we found this incredibly crazy bloke.
Yeah.
Is he really that mental?
No, he's not. And I never allowed him to do anything that I wouldn't do. I mean, for example, in the Snake programme, I was talking about this at the convention the other weekend, that a question people often ask me is, how did you so quickly go from being an actor with a zoology degree to being a quite high-powered producer? And the easy answer is that the two came together, and it was a unique combination. Nobody other than me working in natural history had a drama background. And when I directed the first film with Steve, I directed it like a drama director.
Yeah.
I shot listed. I had drama in each of the 10 sequences. I had a beginning, I had a middle, I had an end. I had a plot development from there to there. Now, historically, natural history had been shot by going out, shooting loads of stuff and creating something in the edit room.
I mean, that really
It was
shows-
created on paper
'cause, I mean,
by
the
me
one- the
before I
one
went out.
saltwater crocodiles.
Yeah, there's a total story
And
there.
he's getting in
It's
the
cr-
water,
yeah.
and you think, don't know. You get out of the water, and he's having a swim round with a snorkel where you know, and as I say, obviously the drama does come through. I mean, 'cause
So it does, yeah. I mean, you've got to have
watchable.
dramatic situations. So if the first one I did with snakes, he's on this island where there are supposed to be loads of snakes. Right, there's supposed to be loads of snakes, right. So let's do a sequence where he finds one snake and suddenly there's another snake right on top of him. And he can grab that one as well, and he can hold them in both hands. This is a fantastic shot. It's never going to happen naturally.
Yeah.
That isn't to say that the zoology wasn't right.
Yes.
If you walk around that island for 4 days, you'll probably be in a situation at some point, if you stand still, where there are 2 snakes within grab reach. I haven't got time to do that. I'm making a television programme. So I do it. I am just out of shot holding another snake so that I can let it go so Steve can grab it.
Yeah.
At a crucial point,
Yeah.
halfway through a sentence. So he has to do it. And I say to Steve, I'm not going to tell you when I'm letting this snake go, Steve. But when I let it go, you will be grabbing it. And you will be set. And your line will be, this island's crawling with snakes. Right? That's drama.
Yeah.
But it's zoology as well. It's saying a zoological point. It's saying, in that case, it was saying 2 things. It was saying, 1, no humans have been on this island, or very few in the last 40 or 50 years, so the snakes have no fear of humans. 2, it is saying it is absolutely crawling with snakes, which it was. I mean, you go into a space this big and there'd be 6 snakes down around. Yeah, great, massive 2.5 metre peninsula tiger snake, 6th most venomous snake in the world. Have absolutely no fear of humans, don't mind if you pick them up at all. So it's saying something really important as well, that this is a unique place. But it's drama. And when would you do it in a drama? When do you feel a drama, it needs a bit of input? You feel, well, about a third of the way through a scene, a third to just under half, you need a dramatic input. You're talking a 3-minute, for me, a 3-minute scene here. Dramatic input, about a third of 50% of the way in. So I'm sitting there with a snake, waiting to do it at the right time. And then I'm saying, you'll tie it up within a minute and a half after that, Steve. And he was great, because he was a natural performer who needed direction, and he took direction wonderfully.
I think what comes through is his enthusiasm.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah. He had that, but he could also understand about the entertainment factor.
Yeah. Yeah.
He is an entertainer, and he could understand what I was doing, why it had to be constructed.
Because there's, I don't know.
But the interesting, you say he's mad, the interesting thing about that was, we couldn't all sleep on the boat off that island, and it was me and the other guy had to sleep, me and another guy had to sleep on the island that night. And there was, they feed on stick nest rats, the snakes that live on that island. These rats build big nests of sticks, and it's covered in rats, the island as well. And there's one deserted house on it which has a fence. I won't do it on the floor, but it's about that big. And the fence is just to stop adders coming in, because it's also teeming with adders, teeming with them. And so that stops the adders coming into this derelict house, but it doesn't stop the tiger snakes coming in. They're too big, they're 2.5 metres, and they're bloody big stuff. And Peter Merchant Knight, he runs a venom farm in Australia. We took a 2-litre cask of port with us, and we both had a litre of port each, and we lay down, and the rats. Rats are fascinating things. We had our rucksacks with us and a bit of plastic, our sleeping bags and bringing in, and the rats all night long. They thought we brought an adventure playground. These were new things to them. And they played with the rucksacks, and they were so noisy, literally dragging, having tug of wars with bits of plastic, and I was crawling with rats, and of course the tiger snakes were crawling everywhere, including over our beds. So
Mark Strickson.
what I would say, to go back to why I did what I did, and why I might go back to being an actor now, is I've had a life. I could have stayed in the BBC studios, I could have stayed in my house in Hastings, but I've had amazing experiences since I took the decision not to do that. And that's been incredible. I mean, I did an interview last weekend for Doctor Who Appreciation Society magazine, and I just started talking about living in the rainforest near Irian Jaya, and about, the extraordinary sort of experience that is living in such a remote place. And other than the Congo and the middle of the rainforest in South America, the most remote place in the world. And you can't, I can try and share it, but it's unbelievable. I feel I've had an incredibly privileged life to be able to do it. I would say I've worked incredibly hard as well in order to be able to do it. I mean, it's not everybody who at 31 will go back to university, teach drama in the vacations and do a zoology degree as well. I mean, it's a bloody nightmare. I sat in my first exam, which was an organic chemistry exam, and I thought, what have you done? This is madness. And it was terribly hard work. But the rewards have been there. I mean, incredible adventure.
Thank you very much indeed. A break now.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that.
Pleasure.
You all right, Steve?
Fine, man.
Run out of film. I was getting signals from